Good afternoon, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of Between Two Beards. I'm your host, Rob Schuh. That's my co-host, Randon McMahon. Randon, we are approaching the 4th of July weekend, man. Are you excited for the holiday? Got big plans on the horizon?
Not really. No. Gonna be working on Saturday and then
Working man.
Kadisa and I, or my girl and I, are gonna be watching fireworks on 4th of July. That's probably about it.
So. Nice. Hey, you can't go wrong with that. You got to earn that money and also get in the fireworks. I also don't have a big exciting plans for the 4th. I feel like it's been a while. It's been a hot minute since I've had exciting 4th of July plans. It has turned into one of those low-key holidays for me. I love to get in some fireworks, love to relax, love the long weekend, but that's about it at my age. Don't have any kids, so there's not like that renewed enthusiasm for the fireworks shows.
Yeah, I'll probably just do some grilling and some pool, and that's about it. Like, obviously with us trying to go to Atlanta and then other trips coming up, it's like you got to know when and when not to spend your money, And I think this is going to be a weekend of not spending my money.
Very true. Hey, that is wise. That is prudent. More Americans should live in that way. But we don't. We like to live beyond our means. That's what we do in this country. All right. Welcome to those that were here, as always, before the show. Those live in the chat: 420 Savage, Ellis 10, Raphael 5629ers, Dan Rostek, Charles Thurman, Jamie Bryant, Schnozzle Shabizzle. I always love saying that one. All right. So we're very excited about it. People are excited about the show. This one starts out with a little bit of pump and dump. The good old pump and dump. It looks like we are back at the gas station for the pump and dump, as I like to refer to it. I did steal that. I will say, Randon, and I gave him credit as I was doing it. I was scrolling through Twitter, and Javier Vega had put out there the pump and dump is back on. And so I immediately tagged that tweet. I was like, Javi, I'm stealing this for the title. He gave me the old thumbs up. So here we are. We have borrowed that creative licensing, right, Randon? I mean, it's all about give and take in this business.
Exactly. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Why don't you go into what was said?
Yeah, let's tee it up. So Adam Schefter comes on NFL Live today. At first, it seems like just sort of, your random Adam Schefter segment talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy's back in the news. We had Jeremy Fowler coming out talking about, hey, Jimmy's going to be throwing again soon. So we're in this dead period. Anything that comes up is going to be front page news for the NFL. They're going to try and blow it up. So that's what I assumed this was going to be. And then it went a touch further. Adam Schefter actually straight up said that the 49ers, after the season, went back and watched the film, watched the tape, and in watching the tape, they suddenly realized how good Jimmy Garoppolo had played during the 2021 season, that it hadn't dawned on them just how special Jimmy's season had been until they went back. I think the exact quote was around, I don't think the 49ers, realized how good Jimmy played until they watched the film. And then he goes on to say, like, those teams that were caught off guard by the surgery, which he does reiterate, that he fully expected Jimmy Garoppolo to be traded until the surgery happened. Everything fell off the rails at that point. He goes on to say that Jimmy Garoppolo's value was in that range of a second round or more, that teams willing to give up a second round or more needed to see Jimmy throw this time around. And so the question that comes up for me is, could it be any more blatant of a pump and dump situation where we're talking about hyperbole with Jimmy Garoppolo? Is there any way the Niners truly went back and watched the film and were like, oh my God, that season was better than I remember?
If they did, they missed the red zone attempts from him, because the article just came out from Niners Nation, and Jimmy Garoppolo had the worst completion percentage of any quarterback in the NFL, with more than 15 passes inside the 10-yard line. He was at 40% completion percentage, 12 for 30. Yeah, he was 8 for 1 for touchdown interception ratio, but 12 for 30 left a lot to be desired there. And so they probably didn't look at that. But no, I mean, enough bashing him. Yeah, I mean, the pump and dump is on. I mean, you got to get the last of the Jimmy bashes, when we're going to be going over that a little bit more today. But it just, I mean, yeah, you're trying to get the most you can for him, right? I mean, it seems like a three-way. It seems like a three-way trade is imminent. I know as much as people are confident in like, oh, if Jimmy goes to Seattle, like he's a loser and we'll still beat him and stuff like that. Well, he's better than Drew Lock and he's better than, Geno Smith.
No question.
And so, you don't want to trade within the division. So I have a feeling they're going to try, if possible, to swing Baker to Carolina, take on some of Sam Darnold's contract and move Jimmy to Cleveland after the suspension seems inevitable for Deshaun Watson.
It does. In particular, if it ends up at a full year for Deshaun Watson, you would think that Cleveland, being a playoff-ready team, is going to make some move, and it just seems implausible that they would be able to bring Baker Mayfield back after the way in which that devolved. I did see an interesting tweet today that was calling out that after making the statement Cleveland did about wanting an adult in the quarterback room, today the juxtaposition is that their $250 million quarterback is in court, and the other quarterback that they were talking trash about was hosting a charity event in Cleveland. So, it begs the question: who is the adult? Who's judging in that particular case? But I think you're right on that could elicit the type of trade that the 49ers are looking for, where a team gets desperate. What I look at this situation specifically with Adam Schefter and talking about pumping up Jimmy's value here is the question that comes to mind for me is, who's his target audience with this? Like, who is he pumping up? Because I can't imagine that NFL teams and front offices tune into NFL Live, hear Adam Schefter go, oh, the Niners looked at that tape and it's phenomenal. And they say to themselves, you know what? We need to reconsider this Jimmy Garoppolo fella. We got to bring him in the building. That just doesn't feel like his target audience. So is he talking to us? And if so, why is he pumping the value to Jimmy?
Who's the same source that keeps leaking all this crap? Like,
yeah,
it just seems like one guy with a vendetta. He's just at his typewriter at night, like, one more story. No, I don't know, man. Like, like, there's literally two teams. If you want to trade a Seattle, three teams. Like, what value are we doing? Like, it's in basic supply and demand. I mean, I guess the demand would go way up for Cleveland if Watson gets suspended, because they're in a win now mode. So then maybe you do get a second round pick because I think you could probably, I don't know how you would do it, but you probably could restructure that contract, tear it up, giving him more guaranteed money. But would Jimmy do that? Like, and if he believes that he can be healthy all year and get the $27 million, I mean, I know that's why they have Watson on a $1 million contract. So, and so he's not really standing in the way. I don't know, like where's this audience? Like, because Carolina already said they didn't want to take on Baker's full contract because they have to pay 100% guaranteed to Sam Darnold. So, like, where the audience is one team.
Yeah,
the Seattle Seahawks have plenty of film on Jimmy Garoppolo. They don't need to see him throw. They know what kind of quarterback he is.
That's right. It does seem, unless you're involving Sam Darnold in the trade, then if you're going with Carolina, you're going to have to eat some of that salary. And then depending on what pick is coming back, is it actually worth it to eat $15 million worth of salary to get back a third round pick? Like, I'm not paying $15 million for a third round pick. And that's essentially what you're doing in that scenario. So this is strange to me. I can't see a scenario where it pumps up Jimmy's value and you actually get more in compensation for him. It does bring his name to the forefront. Like, it could help garner a trade happening at all. But again, it's weird to me that this is so obviously a pump and dump. This is so obviously hyperbole about Jimmy Garoppolo, exaggeration as to how the 49ers feel about him. And it's intended towards some audience. It's just completely unclear to me who that might be and who it's benefiting in this one. But it does seem Adam Schefter is a mouthpiece, a little bit of a mouthpiece for the organization. Like, whenever the Niners need something correctly to be stated in public that helps them out, it seems to be Adam Schefter who breaks it.
And who cares? What if this was John Lynch who just told Adam Schefter this, right? Like, who cares? Like, what's the point? This is hyperbole or pump and dump or whatever, because they're trying to trade the guy.
Right.
So this is even more of a backing of Lance. And two, I think you looking at Baker was the talk of the town because he's the only active available quarterback. Well, the Niners might just be like, hey, Jimmy's throwing next week. Like, he's back in the market and the deal hasn't been done yet. He's been out of the eye or the ear for a couple months now. And so maybe it's just the Niners like, oh yeah, we still have this guy over here that's been to 2 NFC championships games
Yeah.
in 3 years.
It's the Niners and Adam Schefter going like, hey, like, he's about to start throwing, it's time, start the call. So let's
get your goggles ready.
It is that time, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Well, we're going to continue the Jimmy topic, but we do have a couple of questions coming in that I'm going to bring in for us to answer real quick. Melvin asks, Rob, how confident are you in our center position? Brendel is a journeyman that was on our practice squad who has less than a half dozen starts. If Brendel is a liability, who could take over at center? This is absolutely a position that I am a little bit nervous about. I'm trusting that Chris Forster, who has talked up Jake Brendel and who is the most senior offensive assistant coach at this point in time, knows what he's talking about with regard to center. It doesn't give me comfort that he has been on several squads, that he is a journeyman center, and that he hasn't had the starts at his age in the league. It's not as if he's a second or a third year player. And it doesn't seem that the 49ers have a whole lot of depth there, because the next piece up would be Daniel Brunskill, and now you need to fill in at the right guard position as well. So it does feel like this is something you have to keep your eye on during training camp. It
is quite concerning. And I think you look at Mike McGlinchey also, right? I mean, he's your second best lineman coming off a huge injury. You have question marks around all three of the interior pieces. And so like it could be either very good or just absolutely abysmal. And that's what we talked about last week on the PFF rankings being middle ground, is because there's just so much question mark all the way across the line on where injuries and where the guys fill in. Luckily in the zone scheme, it's, the sum is greater than the individual parts usually, because the fact that the whole line moves together to create gaps. But you might see them running like 70% of their runs behind Trent Williams, if that's the case.
You'd love to see it. You'd love to see Trent Williams getting that type of run there. Just going to bring in response to our last segment around the pump and dump and who that hyperbole could have been headed towards, been directed at. Strider 3006 comes in. Rob, it seems like maybe it's more directed towards the fan bases than front offices. Makes the move more appealing for fans. That's fair. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a wildly popular individual in some circles, right? I mean, he gets a lot of flack. Certainly he gets it within our own fan base. But if you're attempting to make a trade, and Adam Schefter is in cahoots with more than just one organization, right? I mean, he is well connected within the NFL sphere. I'm not trying to imply that he does anything untoward in reporting these things. He hears them, he reports them. That's what we ask him to do. He may be in contact with both the 49ers and either the Panthers or the Browns, and they may be saying, hey, Adam, we need a little help selling this one to the fan base. We got to make sure that they really eat this one up. So can you talk up Jimmy G for us?
Do front offices really care?
What fans think? I think they do.
I don't think they do. I mean, if they did, Debo would have been signed months ago.
That, right? I mean, there's something to that, but I would counter in saying that as long as they don't let Debo walk, by the next time they need to sell tickets, Debo will be on the team.
That's true, but I mean, you're look at these fan bases that are potentially this guy's going to, right? Carolina needs to win now for their head coaching sake.
Yeah.
And Sam Darnold,
save his job.
Sam Darnold ain't it.
Nope.
So that fan base doesn't need much convincing to know that Sam Darnold.
Carolina fans don't. No.
And then the Browns, it's a stopgap. They know it's a stopgap.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay,
waiting 1 year.
1 year, and then maybe they extend him if this suspension goes longer than that. Right. So you're looking at Trevor Bauer got 2 years. So like maybe it goes longer than that, and they re-sign Jimmy or restructure that contract and make it a 2-year deal at like $15 million a year or whatever to where the backup money isn't outrageous. I don't know. Man,
Strider 3006. I thought it was viable, but I think Randon's logic is sound here. Like I have to agree with that one. So again, it's a mystery that cannot be solved. All right, here's a couple of quick hitters for us before we move on to the next Jimmy topic. Jamie Bryant coming in. Rob Schuh, who has more yards after the catch and more touchdowns? We'll go one by one on that between Debo and Brandon Ayuk. I'll take the first stab, and I'm going to take touchdowns. I'm going to say Debo because it doesn't specify receiving touchdowns, so I feel like I'm cheating and saying that total touchdowns, Debo is going to beat out Ayuk. On yards after the catch, that one's tougher. All right, I'll let you answer on the touchdowns, and you can take a first stab at Yak.
Debo and Debo.
Debo and Debo. I think I have to agree. Brandon Ayuk is one of the Yak Bros, but not the premier Yak Bro. So yes, I'm with you, Debo, on that one. All right, let's transition to our next Jimmy topic here. Everybody loves to talk about Jimmy. Talking about the Jimmy.
What will
chatter.
we talk about when he's gone?
I don't know.
It'll just be dead air.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta hope that we've got enough to talk about with Trey Lance. Yes, we do. We do. So this is in reference to what everybody has heard at this point. Julian Edelman coming in, talking about Martellus Bennett's comments on Jimmy G, basically confirmed what Martellus had said, which is that it was a late scratch in the week for Jimmy when he was with the Patriots in 2016. He was practicing and then come around, I guess it was Thursday, he said, no, I'm not going to be able to play this week. And they interpreted that as being a business decision. And the word bitch was thrown around a couple of times by Martellus Bennett, something along the lines of you can't win with a bitch for a quarterback, implying that applied to Jimmy G. Now, I didn't get the same sense from Julian Edelman. He didn't say those exact words. He seemed to be a little bit more tiptoeing around the subject, but he did, in fact, confirm that he was upset about it. He said, hey, there were guys in the locker room that were upset about it. I was upset about it. So while he may not have used the exact language, he did imply that was kind of the vibe in the locker room. Is this a story at all? Does it apply to Jimmy's current situation, or is this just another story we get to sort of kick the guy while he's down a little bit?
Well, the whole thing about you hear countless guys on the Niners, oh, Jimmy went to battle with us. We went to war with us. And this seemed like the exact opposite thing. Jimmy was just like, nope, I'm not coming in. And Edelman's like, I'm shooting myself up with whatever to numb all the pain that I have on the field. And I have torn different things and I'm there. And then Jacoby Brissett has a torn finger in his hand and he started like you earn points. It seems like in any locker room, whether you play whatever sports you play, if it's a team sport, if you play through adversity and you shine, like that's where like you get so much points, right? Brett Favre playing right after his dad died and having that monster game, like those, like those moments earn so much pub for your locker room or within your locker room amongst those players, right? I mean, because you're going to war for your team at that point.
Right. You're in the trenches with your guys. You're out there battling. And I agree. And that does make sense that's why Jimmy is as respected as he is within the 49ers locker room, that they feel, regardless of whatever he may have done while he's with New England, he was going to battle with them. He did show up, in particular this past season. I do have a tough time questioning Jimmy's toughness after this past season. I mean, I'm not going to go out.
Maybe that was learned from this incident.
It could be. It could be that he took in that criticism from his teammates and decided to play through it. The other angle I would take with this is, I mean, it probably was a business decision, right? It very much probably was his agent saying to him, hey, man, like we got a chance with a big contract coming up. You play through this and don't play well and then don't get another chance to showcase what it is you've got. You may not earn that next deal. I'm a little surprised that if that was the motivation, which it seems likely, that he would get criticized for that. Because generally, we're going to talk about this in a moment with the George Kittle segment. Generally, your teammates are all for you getting your bag as well. Like there's the team aspect, but there's very much the, hey, this is get your money while you can, because this is the NFL type of thing. So I'm a little surprised that those players are not in support of someone just trying to go out and get their bag.
Well, let's also put some context into the situation. This was the season right after Deflategate.
Right. Brady was suspended.
Brady was suspended, took the fall for the team, even though it comes out later on now, like I think it was last year that the whole thing was a farce, and so like if you watch it on the documentary, like Brady never admitted to it. He said, like, this is BS, but I'll take the suspension, I'll fall on the sword. Like when you have a guy who is your leader, who is the best player on that team, who's led you to multiple Super Bowls, falling on the sword, going for a 4-game suspension, and you're relied upon to make sure that team goes 3-1 or at least 2-2, and then you're not stepping up to the table. If Jimmy doesn't play well in that one game and plays through it hurt, and Brady's the quarterback the rest of the season, you have plenty of time to rest.
Right.
Like you have plenty of time to get healthy. And for me, it's like the team is like, okay, we got to win again. Like we got to get back in the public races of our fandom. And, like as well as I do, the Northeast is blue collar type mentality. Like you need to play, you need to be out there. You just throw some dirt on it and get on the effing field.
Right. A little dirt and spit. You're good to go.
And I just think that didn't sit well after the anointed one, took the fall on the sword for Deflategate, and they relied upon Garoppolo to lead them to 3-1, 4-0, and he didn't.
Yeah, and Jacoby Brissett did go out there. I guess I am okay with the idea of criticizing Jimmy for being late in the week in announcing the fact that he's not going to start. That I get. Yes, if you knew you were going to make a business decision, let the team know earlier so that they have a contingency plan in place, maybe something other than Jacoby Brissett with a torn ligament coming in there. But I can get behind him for the business decision because it turned out to be the right decision, right? I mean, he went on to earn himself a $137 million contract, and you could argue that had he gone into that game, sustained a more significant injury, it may have prevented him from getting that contract. So I am surprised that his teammates, use the derogatory term, that they don't appreciate the idea he was trying to make a business decision. But I do think it's a very fair criticism to say that, hey, if you were going to step out on that game, that you should have announced it earlier in the week.
But you look at all the players that were around while this was being talked about in this podcast, we're all laughing when it was a non-playing shoulder or non-throwing shoulder that was the injured shoulder. Like what do you got to lose? Like it's not affecting your, like it really doesn't affect your game much besides taking hits in the pocket. Like you should have been out there. Like, it's not like torn ligament or throwing shoulder, and you think it like as much as Baker has been given flack, like he played through every injury this season, maybe to the demise of him because it didn't help his stock with the team didn't play well. But like non-throwing shoulder, you're the leader of this team.
Yeah.
Like get on the field.
That is fair. It is a non-throwing shoulder. That's a key piece to the information. All right, we got a couple of chats that I'm going to get to before we transition on to the next topic, talking a little bit about Peter Schrager coming on Pat McAfee. We got 420 Savage here in the building at Rob Schuh. If 49ers release Jimmy and he gets signed, do the 49ers get a compensatory draft pick in next year's draft? They do not. You have to allow that individual to get to free agency, and then if they're signed, you get that compensatory draft pick. So that one would be, they would not, but they would get back the entirety of Jimmy's salary, which again is nothing to sneeze at there. Especially,
I also think it had to be done they have to be signed on another team by May 1st, right?
Yeah, I think it may have been like May 10th. There was a cutoff date for the compensatory draft pick. Period. That is for sure. All right, we've got a super chat here as well, but I saw another one that was a quick answer that I wanted to get to, and I can't find it. All right, we will get to this super chat, which is very important here. Chris Royal coming in. Here we go. Wouldn't it be somewhat accurate to say Jimmy brought the war to team more so than him going to war with them? Glad you're on the jersey train, Rob. Thank you for the shout out on the jersey. Appreciate that. That seems like a underhanded dig at Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think the locker room liked him. Like, regardless of what the fan base thought, regardless of the frustration that we may have had with some of those picks and mistakes that he had on the field, I don't have any doubt that the locker room was very sincere in appreciating Jimmy Garoppolo. Would you say the same, Randon?
Yeah, Trent Williams had a smile to his face talking about him. A lot of other people said the same thing. And he earned, I think when you go deep into the playoffs, right? Like this was Jimmy Garoppolo's chance to earn the locker room or part of the locker room as like a confident backup. Like, okay, Garoppolo played well. If Tom goes down later in the season, like we have nothing to worry about. And like that could earn him points. But Jimmy earned points in 2019. I think in the end of 2017, when that team was absolute trash and some of these guys like Kittle were there, it's like, okay, you earned major points then with him. Like you came in and flipped that team around. And so, they went to war. They went to war together. I think a lot of the players on the locker room like him. Maybe, not some of them there, but you're not going to like everybody. But I think they at least respect him for trying to play through the injury to lead them to a Super Bowl this year.
Right. And respect is a key word there, because it seems that's what's lacking in the Patriots locker room when they're speaking about him, at least these couple of players. This was the one I was going to get to. 187 asking the simple question: did we trade for him that same season? We didn't. That was 2016 that he was held out, that he held himself out of that game. And it was 2017 where we traded for him towards the end of the year. But it was his results in 2016 that gave people confidence in trading for him. All right, so we are moving on to this next segment here, talking about Peter Schrager. Another, you could say that this is reminiscent of the pump and dump that we were talking about earlier, that again, there was a little bit of hyperbole thrown around. So Peter Schrager had a couple of things to say while he was on there. The first was in regard to the Jimmy Garoppolo trade and the Debo deal. And he was very specific about it. I do think that it's now a little bit different since we have announced the retirement of Alex Mack. That obviously freed up a handful of millions of dollars, thus leaving the 49ers about $4 and change under the cap at this point. So they do have room, whereas before that retirement, they couldn't even sign the rookie class. But he does go on to say, Peter Schrager says, that Jimmy G trade and Debo deal are not dependent upon one another. They are separate issues. And he reiterates the fact that it was the surgery that threw everything off, and that the 49ers are holding on to Jimmy Garoppolo because at this time, they don't want to trade him for 20 cents on the dollar. They don't want to take that deflated value. They still believe that Jimmy Garoppolo has trade value, and once he's healthy, he will be traded. I wanted to take this moment to put out there into the ether that I still believe that the 49ers are going to be able to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. I still believe that a starting quarterback within this league has value, enough value to warrant either the 49ers eating some portion of that salary and getting a compensatory pick back from the team that warrants eating that percentage of the salary, or a team just willing to pay $25 million for a starting caliber quarterback. But Randon, I wanted to get your take as to whether you think a trade is unlikely at this point, whether you think the more likely outcome is the cut.
I think the fact we're just waiting for the suspension, right? If he's suspended 6 games, Watson, then maybe you go, okay, we'll take Brissett for 6 games, and then we'll try to make a push at the end of the season. Let's not give up anything. If it's a full year, do you really have confidence in Brissett to lead your team to far in the playoffs when Jimmy's shown that he maybe wasn't the reason, but he led a team that rushes the football? That sounds like Cleveland. Cleveland was top 3 in that PFF for offensive line. They have 2 of the best running backs in the game. Amari Cooper still has a lot in the tank, in my opinion. They went out and drafted a 3rd-round wide receiver. They just signed Njoku to a big deal, whether that was warranted or not. They believe in him as a tight end. So, he would be going into a good spot. Right? I mean, the team likes to run the football. The Niners like to run the football. The team has a good defense. The Niners have a good defense. It seems like a mirror image of what's going on. Are you laughing about the super chat?
I am. Chris Royal coming in. Way to rain on my parade. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Chris had me
get your poncho
over here.
Yeah, get your poncho, buddy. So, I think it is where he should go. I think it's all dependent on that. I do believe he's right. Debo and the Jimmy deals are completely separate. Debo's playing under his rookie contract this season.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with that. It's going to be based off that, and they could still figure out the money next season. So to me, they have nothing to do with each other. And there's no reason for the Niners to cut Jimmy at this point.
No.
Right.
Sorry, I was just going to interject and say it was funny that in this segment, Pat McAfee hears that. He hears, well, the Niners aren't going to cut him because they're not going to take 20 cents on the dollar. And McAfee immediately jumps to, so what I'm hearing you say is that Jimmy's going to be back competing for a job in San Francisco. And it just it blows me away that is the storyline that we want to run with here. Jimmy's going to be back. Maybe who's going to start week 1? Here we are. Pat McAfee just wants to spin that one more time.
But would you be, I guess I would be upset, but let me ask you this question. If he's in camp, is it a camp competition, or is it fully Trey's team and you don't even consider camp? If Trey's the guy that you want him to be, he should be able to beat out Jimmy Garoppolo this time, right?
He should. I mean, you can always say, hey, Jimmy Garoppolo has played within, that same system for 4 years, right? Going on year 5 within the system. So that could give him an advantage, but physical skill set, yeah. I mean, I would say that Trey should be able to prove that it was his job to take. The thing that I get hung up on is if Jimmy Garoppolo is back for training camp, do you actually want him out there on the field practicing? Do you want him out there in preseason games? I'm not going to label Jimmy as a complete, injury-plagued individual. I think he's had some unfortunate injuries throughout his career, but he is susceptible to injury. I certainly will concede that. And so that would be a worst case scenario. Something happens in preseason. So I struggle to see the 49ers playing him, but you hear Peter Schrager talking about, he says, I feel like I could see Jimmy coming back in San Francisco, them figuring something out and then trading him during training camp. So that implies that he's there at camp. I think in most scenarios, if Jimmy shows up to camp, you have to give him reps, because otherwise, what message are you sending to anyone that might be wanting to trade for Jimmy? Is he truly healthy if he's not out there getting those reps?
You can't waive people's fees this like in a new player agreement. Like, so you can't tell Jimmy like, oh yeah, just missed time. Yeah, you can't. Hey Jimmy, don't show up and pay us $40,000 a day to help us out. I'd give you a swift middle finger if somebody told me that. So like it's just like he's gonna be there. Like, could they give him a false injury or saying that they don't want to rest the shoulder? But then that doesn't help him trade. That doesn't help him trade it.
Like, hey, we're just kidding about the injury. We just don't want him practicing. But like, he's good. He's good.
Yeah, I could see them like giving it like Trey, 80 to 90% of the reps, and then like put out some Jimmy G highlight reels, on Twitter. But like during the state of the franchise, I pointed it out. Like Jimmy was nowhere in that video. So yeah. I mean, it just it's going to be interesting. I feeling the Niners want to get something done before camp. So there's no
it seems, I mean, honestly, if I'm reading the tea leaves, they're desperate to get something done before camp, right? Like they seem to be sending up all the smoke signals that are like, hey, dude, we are ready to make a deal as soon as Jimmy is healthy enough to throw. I like CJ Gray's comment here. I can think of 25.2 million reasons why you can't even let him practice. Yeah, it would be fun to see. Would they make up a false injury? I think that you're correct. I haven't looked into the NFLPA rules, but I think you are correct about not being able to simply excuse him from those fines that he would accrue if he wasn't there. So he's obviously going to want to show up. But would the 49ers actually want him out there? It's a valid question. So that came up as a part of it, which certainly is, it is what it is. We're still talking about Jimmy Garoppolo being here. We're still trying to put up a storyline that is, well, maybe Jimmy will start week 1. Once he's off the team, that's the only time that storyline will die. But I did appreciate Peter Schrager's comments about Trey Lance. And this is me highlighting, like, taking out of this little interview what I want to hear, right? I should either accept it all or reject it all. But no, I'm picking and choosing what I want to take. And I loved his comments on Trey Lance. He went on to say, Trey Lance grew leaps and bounds the past few months from what I'm told, as far as playbook and voice in the locker room. I saw the voice in the locker room growing from Trey Lance. That evidence to me is right there in front of my two eyes. So I absolutely believe in this statement from Peter Schrager. I'm sure it was said in an effort to prop up Trey Lance and to make him feel supported. I'm all for that. I think it should be done, and I'm buying this one.
Yeah, I think Trey Lance is the dude. I mean, I think he exudes confidence, and whether he end up reaching the ceiling that we all think he has, or most of us think he has, I think is up to him. I've been saying that nonstop, but I think that he has all the confidence in the world in his own abilities, which is fantastic.
Yes, it is important to have that confidence. That's what allows people to get in behind you and be your followers, right? When you can be that bold, brash leader out in front, still with a little bit of humility, which it seems Trey absolutely has. He's a soft-spoken dude, but he has a certain aura about him this year that didn't seem to be there last year. I'm going to take that as growth, and I'll attribute it to whomever he says. He seemed to indicate that, some of the early time with Brian Griese was paying off. I heard that story about Brian Griese tapping into the quarterback's why. So if it was Brian Griese that brought out the confidence in Trey Lance, then that was a great freaking hire by Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic about the Griese hire. I think it's going to be something good for him from the mental standpoint.
Yes, it is. Speaking of good from the mental standpoint, whenever the SF Niners drops into your chat and says the beards are looking wonderful, it's just, a cause for celebration. Just one of those moments that must be recognized. Beards get called out every day, but it's not often that a fellow bearded brother comes on to shout it out. So what's up, Brad? Good to see you.
Hope everything's well with you and your boy.
Yes, absolutely. Well said, Randall. I absolutely hope that things are going well there. I've been following along with the updates there. All right, let's transition a little bit to the statements by George Kittle when he was on that Bussin' with the Boys program last Thursday. Came out just a day. He obviously doesn't know the day of the week that Between Two Beards are on because he put out the podcast on Thursday. We had to wait a whole 6 days to respond to it. George, That's unacceptable in my book. In the future, please put those out on Tuesday so that we have fresh stories to cover on Between Two Beards on Wednesday. But anyway, he did come out and he was asked by Will Compton about Debo and about that contract. And this is a little bit more of what I was expecting to hear with regard to, the Jimmy Garoppolo saga that we were talking about earlier, where it's a respect of the business angle to this. He comes in and says, dude, everyone loves Debo. I also think it's the NFL. Go get what you deserve, dude. Debo deserves to get paid a lot of money. And if they don't want to pay you a lot of money, do what you need to do, dog. Your locker's here, but if you need to leave, hey, it's okay. There's no bad blood with me. The window to play NFL football and get paid is like this big. For your whole life, you have to be incredibly selfish. I really enjoyed what Kittle had to say there because it was supportive of Debo and acknowledged that, like, no matter what happens, I've got his back in this scenario because he's just attempting to maximize his money and take care of his family. And he has a very abbreviated window within which he can do that.
It would be very hypocritical of George Kittle to say anything otherwise because that's what he did. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people feel this way, right? I'm like, hey, we understand that this is this negotiation is going to be tough, and we understand that you have to do what you have to do. No hard feelings. And if you are wearing a Niners jersey, you're my brother. And if not, then congrats to you for getting your money and see you on the field. That's pretty much what it sounds like, and good for him.
Right? Debo deserves that money. I also really enjoyed what he had to say about contract negotiations in general. When he was talking about that, he said that, he got some advice from Richard Sherman back in the day, who we all know Richard Sherman handled his own contract negotiations. He said it's not a lot of fun. The best thing he ever heard was from Richard Sherman. It's like braces. It sucks the entire time. And then as soon as you get them off, you forget you ever had them. That is a well-said statement from Richard Sherman that, when you're in the midst of it, Debo scrubs his social media. It seems like he's on the outs with the team, never wants to come back to San Francisco. As soon as the money is right, much like in OTAs, Debo's going to be on the sideline smiling, hamming it up with his boys. Like, it will seem as if none of this ever happened once it's all settled.
Yeah, I remember this little clip with Tom Hanks, and it was this too shall pass. When you're at your highest high, this too shall pass, and when you're at your lowest lows, this too shall pass. And I think you're looking at a situation like Debo was super high after the season, like I thought was offensive player of the year, and you're looking at something like, man, he's at his highest high, and the Niners just go, well, let's start with this contract negotiation and take you down a peg. And then, then it's just coming back and forth. And I think ultimately once the bag gets dropped and all those zeros hit his account, it's never, this too shall pass, and he'll be back to being happy.
Those zeros would make me forget quite a bit, Randon. I could forget some traumatic events in my life. Big Papa coming in with what Kittle is saying. It just proves that players don't worry about what players are going to make, and neither should we. You've got 187. Kittle did also say he got paid a week before the season started. He said Niners do contracts late. He did reiterate that fact, and I still think that the Debo deal absolutely gets done, and it gets done on that timeline that the 49ers have seemed to lay out there for these big contracts. The SF Niners coming in. Kittle and the 49ers clearly had a tumultuous negotiation, and he's not letting the 49ers forget it. LOL. No, he is bringing it up that, like, hey, I may have moved past it. I got the braces off, and I'm no longer thinking about it. But when I had them on, yeah, they sucked. When I was in Debo's freaking shoes, yeah, that sucked. So it is a little dig in that regard.
You don't think about it every day, but then when somebody asks you for your advice, like, oh, like, You got braces. How were they? Like, they were awful. Like,
They were terrible.
They were horrible, but you don't think about it every day. But when somebody asks you about it or, points it in your direction, the memories come flooding back.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Let's see. CJ Gray coming in. Not paying Debo would be malpractice. I have to agree. There are very few things that I get fired up about enough to say that Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch should be chastised for it. If they decided not to pay Debo, I would absolutely chastise them for that.
Yeah, we don't know if Ayuk's going to be a 1,400-yard receiver. Like, we know Debo is. And so, like people are like, oh, well, maybe you can't pay both, which I've said that too. But for sure Debo's a beast.
Right.
And
He's
you don't
proven
know you don't know if Ayuk's can reach his pinnacle. And so, sure, in a couple years, where after the 5th-year option for Ayuk, and you have to worry about paying 2 receivers over $20+ million, like, how are you going to do that? That's a future John Lynch problem. Like, let's just sign the guy right now, and let's worry about this season. Like,
let future John Lynch deal with that frickin' problem. Just pay Debo today.
Yeah.
All right. What also came up in that podcast with George Kittle was his logic on adding an extra bye week to the season. And I just threw this in there because, to me, this is a no-brainer. Like, I fail to see any reason against it. As Kittle put the logic out there, it's just an extra week to the season. It just extends when the Super Bowl would be played by 1 additional week. And there are a few, or 1 or 2 fewer games on any given Sundays out there, but you're still going to have enough games to fill the slots of a 10 a.m. game on the West Coast, 10-1, and a Sunday night. You get your Thursday nights in there, right? You still got all those time slots in there. You've added a second bye for these teams so that now they get a second week of rest. You're adding an extra week of TV deals, which I have to think brings the NFL significant profit. I see no reason. He also brings up that then the Super Bowl would fall on President's Day, and so you'd have the day off after Sunday, which is the way it should be anyway, right? If we're serious about it, like, there should be a freaking national holiday after the Super Bowl standing. But why not? There is no reason not to add the second bye week, in my opinion.
I don't understand. Like, they can make the Super Bowl. I know it's Super Bowl Sunday, but, like, they could change it to Super Bowl Saturday. like why not? Like, you're scheduling this game. Like, everybody's watching it, and have the day off next week, because not everybody gets President's Day off. Like, I work in the car business. Unless
that's a busy day for you.
Unless it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, and, like, we're there. So it's just different things there. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. So, like, you would be getting a bye week, probably your first bye week between weeks 4 and weeks 9, and then your second one between 9 or 10 and probably 15, right? And so, like, throwing it out there, or they start the season, like, because they gave them a week off right now after the 3rd preseason game before the first week,
right?
Maybe you just take away that week and move the season up, and that way you're not playing until mid-February. Like, I don't know what it is, but more TV revenue, more games on, more prime time. Also, I know they won't do this, but then they could stop doing the weird Saturday games or whatever. Like,
right. And yeah, you're right. They won't stop doing that. They could, but they won't. They won't. But, I like Lee Ving's prediction could be what gets negotiated next, because you get the extra frickin' actual game in season. Lee Ving saying, hey, 2 preseason games, get rid of that 3rd one, bring it up to 18 games, and then put in the 2 buys. You have your Super Bowl in mid-February. I'm sure that's what the NFL will try to leverage out of the NFLPA. I think it's going to be really tough to get them up to that 18th game. The 17th game, I think players, from what I heard, were feeling the 17th game. And so whether that was them, exaggerating that so that they had some leverage in the next contract negotiations with the NFL, whatever it may be, I think it's going to be tough to get up to 18 games. Whereas adding the extra bye doesn't seem like it would be something either side would object to.
I also you need preseason games. Like, fans don't need it, but players do. Like,
right.
You look at and you listen to a lot of guys who are fringe guys, and one of the, in the Niners realm, Crocker talked about his time being a fringe guy and what OTAs meant for him, and OTAs mean for these guys that are trying to make the 53 that might not be, and it means nothing for Trent Williams.
Right.
The 2 preseason games, they have some shake off a little rest. He plays a couple series. He's good, but these games could mean roster spots for people. And when you eliminate one game because of the fact that you want to add a regular season game, you're taking away people's potential to feed their family and jobs. And those preseason games are where a lot of these decisions are made. I mean, there are only a few decisions on the Niners roster, but rosters like the Jaguars and the Texans, like there's a lot of spots open. And so like you're, as far as you are allowing guys to earn money.
And even for the 49ers, they have a very tough decision to make at the end of the roster. And so getting those additional reps, getting those additional looks at players is huge. I didn't feel that way about that fourth preseason game because it went down to like you were playing all of the third stringers and everybody who really didn't have a chance to make it against each other. And so you didn't see elite level of competition versus someone trying to crack into the league, which I think gives the better chance of grabbing someone and stuffing them onto the roster. So I think 3 preseason games still allows you to see people, but you go down to 2, and now it is truly just enough to get most of your veterans up to speed, and you're getting very limited reps from some of those guys that are trying to make rosters. By the way, I do agree with 187 here in that it will get to 18. I think we may be looking at more like 5 years down the road or 5 years plus, because again, I think the NFLPA is just going to drag their feet and try to get something big out of the NFL in order to get that 18th game.
I just wonder what is too much. Like, I know everybody's like, oh, more football. Yeah. Like, okay, let's have 32 games and let's just play every single team every year, or let's have a big tournament, where it's just like no regular season and it's just like Smash Bros. And, like I at that point, like there's got to be what is too much at this point?
Yeah.
Like,
the law of diminishing returns, Randon bringing in some economic theory into it. Funny enough, I'll just tell this story, try to keep it quick, but we had in high school, so our teacher trying to illustrate the law of diminishing returns. It was an 8 a.m. civics class or whatever the hell it was titled. I rarely went to 8 a.m. classes myself there, my friend. And so, but I was there that day and she was attempting to teach the law of diminishing returns. So she got a couple of volunteers up there, but happened to pick one of the students that was a little bit more of a free thinker, let us say. And she was giving out marshmallows. It was 8 a.m. So marshmallows at 8 a.m., like you got to be pretty committed to sugar to find that delicious at 8 a.m. Well, the free thinker that I'm referencing here was delighted by the marshmallow and was delighted each and every time. So with every other student, it was very quick. It was like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how delicious is this marshmallow? First one, that's an 8. Second one, that's a 4. Third one, that's a 1. I don't want any more marshmallows, right? At 8 a.m., that law of diminishing returns happens quickly. This dude was 10. I mean, he must have eaten a dozen freaking marshmallows. It was delightful. So it was the exception that proved the rule. Law of diminishing returns, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's transition.
Come for the football, leave for the economics.
That's right.
or stay for the economics.
Stay for the economics. We probably just lost 50,000 people. They were like, economics lessons? I'm out of here. The hell is this? Unbelievable.
Niners in the background, but what are they talking about?
But we do need an economics lesson for our last topic, which is a topic on millions and millions of dollars. Terry McLaurin's contract and the impact on the Debo deal. So Adam Schefter wrote a pretty phenomenal article. I didn't actually realize he was writing all that many articles anymore. I thought he just popped on to NFL Live and gave some hyperbole on the pump and dump. But no, he's writing articles as well. He goes on to say, the 3-year extension for McLaurin includes a $28 million signing bonus. That is the largest given to any wide receiver and also has 76.4% of the new money in the deal guaranteed. So $28 million up front, 76% of the money in the deal is guaranteed, and it was $71 million in a 3-year contract extension. We've got some more relevant details that we'll bring into the equation here, but how do you feel this potentially impacts the Debo Samuel deal, if at all?
I think it gives just more evidence. Like, not more math talk, but as far as more data is usually better data, right? So the fact that they're just getting more comparisons on what players are getting paid, because there's always those outlandish contracts, Christian Kirk, that come in and throw off the scale, but these other receivers are getting paid all around the same thing, and 23 million right there, seems like a good thing. And Terry McLaurin is a comparable receiver to Debo Samuel. He was never an all-pro, but he was fairly consistent. And so you could see this kind of play here around the 23 to 25, 3/4 of it guaranteed. And then Debo, because he's only making, I think $4 million this year, like having a massive signing bonus and letting him get that bag right away would definitely allow him to feel better about running out of the backfield.
Yes. The guaranteed money seems important to me for Debo. If he's going to be continually asked to be the wide back within San Francisco's offense, I would think the percentage of money guaranteed would be a big sticking point for he and his camp. I do have to take a moment and flash us back real quick to that economics lesson because we have a plot twist. The SF Niners announces the plot twist was he is the marshmallow guy. Yes, Brad and I were in high school economics together. No, Brad was not the marshmallow guy. The marshmallow guy was a free thinker. I'll leave it there. So when we look at more context, as you were referencing it, we're talking about a market that did explode. Again, from that article with Adam Schefter, talking about Devontae Adams, 5 years, $140 million. Tyreek Hill, 4 years, $120 million. A.J. Brown, 4 years, $100 million. Each signed deals worth at least $100 million. The other ones of note, Stephon Diggs, 4 years, 96. Cooper Kupp, 3 years, 80. Mike Williams, 3 for 60. Chris Godwin, 3 for 60 as well. He put in McLaurin's stats in there, and he did surpass 1,000 yards receiving 2 out of the 3 first seasons. His rookie year was over 900 receiving yards. I mean, he has had a good first 3 years in the league and has only missed 3 games to this point. And yet, I expect Debo's contract to exceed Terry McLaurin's. If it doesn't, I would be a little bit surprised.
I wonder if it's going to be like a Cooper Kupp thing. Like, would Debo take less money if it was all guaranteed? Like Cooper Kupp's extension was pretty much 100% guaranteed. So, like, is that something that would benefit Debo in that point and benefit the Niners as well? Like paying him less overall money, but the all guaranteed, right? 3 year, $80 million, all guaranteed. I mean, that seems like a win for Debo at that point, and you're not paying him as or exactly Terry's contract and more guaranteed money. But I don't know if the Niners want to do that.
Right, to put all that big guaranteed money in there. I mean, if they front loaded it to some respect and it's a 3-year extension, I could see it. I think they're going to have to go up in the guaranteed money. I see it as the 49ers probably needing to come in at, 60 million plus of guaranteed money in order to get this deal done. Because I think that what they signaled to Debo's camp in not trading him, and I saw CJ Gray referencing this earlier in the chat as well. He and I are in lockstep on this. They basically said to Debo's camp, by not trading him, we're going to pay you. And so to me, it tipped the scales in Debo's camp's favor. So if they really want to hold out for that guaranteed money, that may be what they're able to do. The 49ers may have to fold at that point.
Yeah, you look at the Tyreek Hill contract, like the last year of it, he's like making $50 million, and like it's he's never going to see that.
Never going to see that.
Right. So like, what is best for the Niners and what's best for Debo? Debo's a little bit older. Can he hold up through what the style of play that they expect him to play? Is Debo even Debo if he isn't playing some wide back at that point? Like, is his value lowered? You could say that he was on pace. He was the second best wide receiver in the league through the first 10 games as far as a receiver before he started playing wide back. Like, there's a lot of pieces that are moving around here, and like, what is beneficial for both clubs? Because are you going to get Debo like you did last year in 3 years? Or are you going to have a 4th year on there where it's none of the guaranteed money's there and you can pretty much cut him there. If he's still playing high pace, you can, keep him around. Like, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds as far as the actual where all the dollars and cents end up lying.
It is. Speaking of dollars and cents, by the way, I'm on top of these bots in the frickin' chat trying to come in with their HD whatnot, talking about Dayton whatnot. Get out of here, spam and bot. All right, where we are at with money, I wanted to quote Jason Hurley of 49erscap.com. Just if the 49ers decided to do something very similar to Terry McLaurin's extension, where it's a huge signing bonus up front, if they were to do that $28 million signing bonus, they would then need to use up about $2.6 million of their available cap, because what they would do is in that extension, most likely reduce Debo's salary this year from 3.93 down to 965K. So they would reduce his base salary by about $3 million. And then the $28 million would get prorated over the life of the deal, which would be the 3 years added on to the fourth year. So you would divide it in and then add that all together, carry the 1, and you come up with the 49ers eating up $2.6 million. He goes on to say you could also get the Bosa deal done this offseason with the remaining free money if you cleared up just a little bit of cap space. And he suggests renegotiating Trent Williams' contract, which he sees coming at some point in the future.
Yeah, I mean, do you want, like, right now, Bosa would probably get somewhere near TJ Watt type money.
Right.
But if you wait until after a season where he maybe goes for 20 plus sacks, and like maybe what if he wins Defensive Player of the Year?
Oh, goodness gracious. He's going to be expensive.
Like 35 mil. Like,
oof.
Is he going to be over Aaron Donald at that point? So it happened. It happens a lot. It happened with the Cowboys in Dak Prescott. They kept waiting, and all these other quarterbacks got signed, and he got paid more because of it. Like,
right.
They could have signed him before Carson Wentz got signed, and paid him almost nothing, and they didn't. And like, so, man, like Bosa, obviously they don't have to get the deal done because he's got the 5th year option, everything like that. But like, just kind of planning ahead and getting it done and booking the flights early.
Yeah. Let's lock that in now, huh, Niners? Yeah. Let's not eat up another $25 million over the life of the deal because we let somebody else jump the line and get in front of Nick Bosa. So I don't truly understand why the 49ers seem so obstinate in waiting until the end of July, right before training camp, in order to get these big deals done. It is another situation where I'm not clear on what the upside is on doing that. It does seem as if other players jump the line and then you're forced to pay more. It has happened with Deebo Samuel, although that market has cooled just a little bit. I mean, this contract with Terry McLaurin is nothing like those first couple of contracts that blew us away. But with Nick Bosa, you are certainly going to have a couple of defensive ends getting paid, and that will bump up Nick Bosa's asking price. I think his camp is not going to play around with how much money they are going to demand for a premium pass rusher.
I think Bosa's camp knows that too. And they're like, nah, we'll wait. Like,
well, you know what? We're not, John, just hold up. You just focus on Deebo right now. We'll wait. We'll get ours. Don't you worry.
So, I mean, you look at the Niners, I don't know what the benefit of it is, right? So highest paid fullback, highest paid middle linebacker, highest paid left tackle, highest paid tight end. Like, there's only so many highest paids you can do before you run out of money. And like, what are they're gonna wait? If Trey Lance becomes what we all think he can be, like, you're talking about maybe possibly with the TV money going up, like 65 million for his extension. Like, ooh, you're talking crazy, stupid money. And like, at what point, you can't keep writing unlimited checks. Like, there's a salary cap for a reason.
Terradome saying that's how we do it here thing will bite us in the keister. It does seem to, at a minimum, cost us millions of dollars. Well, this has been a fantastic show. I'm thrilled to have gotten through another fantastic week here during the dead period for the NFL with some highly engaging conversation with my good friend Randon. Randon, as always, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Always a pleasure, my man. Always my pleasure, my bearded brethren.
Absolutely. We have all of Randon's information down in the description of the video. You can go follow him on Twitter. You can go subscribe to Cerberus Sports on YouTube. You can also subscribe to Hockey Royalty on YouTube. Randon, what kind of stuff do you have coming up prior to the holiday weekend?
Well, we just did all this draft talk, and I had all these scouts come on, and the Kings just traded away their first round pick.
Oh, how dare they? How dare the Kings do that?
I was like, man, we got all that stuff good. So we just did an episode last night, where they should go with the first round. We just did an interview with Sixten Funquist out of Sweden, talking all the Swedish prospects. So we talked some second and third round guys too, so that's still relevant. But yeah, so I mean, if you guys are Sharks fans, you guys can go in there and listen for yourselves and what pick you guys have about what players will be there. A good Swedish prospect is Lekkerimäki. Great scoring winger. He should be there around that pick. So that's somebody that I can throw out there. But yeah, it's definitely fun. But hey, it happens. I mean,
I feel like that's even more fun to go watch it now and like hear all that breakdown and be like, yeah, they traded that pick. Like, it's fun to know that has already happened and go back. Love it. Chris Royal coming in. Absolutely appreciate you, Chris. Thanks for the content, gents. Chris says, thank you, Chris. I appreciate you being on here as always. Great dude. All right. So before you guys leave, if you enjoy the content, please do hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Randon and I will be back same bat time, same bat channel every week. Next week at 5 p.m. I'll be on tomorrow. Look at that. Another bot. They are with a fervency here. Block that user. Blocking it. We will be back on. I will be back on tomorrow at 5 p.m. with the Sneakerheads, doing the Sneakerhead call-in show. Until then, you know the drill. Cheers, faithful.